All right, so now let's go through the solution. I'm going to collapse everything just so that I have a bit more space to see each of my to-dos. And alternatively, we can also just open up the to-do window. So the first to-do is to randomly choose a word from the word list. So to do that, we need to import the random module. And then using the random module, you might remember that we saw that there was a function called random.choice. And inside here, we need to pass in a sequence. And in this case, the sequence we want to pass in is our word list. So now that we've created a random word from that list, we need to assign it to a variable. And in the to-do, it says to assign it to a variable called chosen word. So we can just add an equal sign between those two things. And now we have set it to this variable. The final thing we need to do is simply just print the chosen word. And that's to-do number 1 completed. Now you might notice there is a yellow squiggly line under the import, and that's because according to PEP 8 and Python style guidance, imports should always be at the very top of the list. But because we've got our to-dos as well, we had it down there, but it would work both cases exactly the same. So now let's tackle to-do number 2, which is to ask the user to guess a letter and assign their answer to a variable called guess. So firstly, let's go ahead and figure out how to ask the user for a letter. So we're going to use input, and I'm simply just going to write guess a letter : space, and then we're going to assign this to a variable called guess. And finally, we want to make this guess lowercase. So we can simply write .lower. Now let's go ahead and print the value of guess and run our code just to make sure that everything works so far as we expect it to. So instead of selecting solution, I'm going to select current file and hit run. So the first thing that prints is baboon, and this means that our to-do 1 was completed successfully because we randomly chose a word from the word list and then printed it out. Now to-do 2 should ask the user to guess a letter and then go ahead and make it lowercase. So we're printing it out just to make sure it works. Let's say I guess the letter, but I type a capital A. Now when I hit enter, hopefully this .lower function will turn it into lowercase, and then it gets stored in this variable called guess, which gets printed out here. Now the reason why we're turning it lowercase is because the user might start off a letter in all caps, or they might use lowercase. But if we were to check against our words in the word list, you'll notice that they're all in lowercase. So if we make everything all the same casing, that makes our lives a lot easier down the line. So we have now completed to-do 1 and to-do 2, and all that's left to do is to-do number 3. So what we want to do is we want to take this letter that the user guessed, A, check it against each of the letters in the word that was randomly chosen, and see if it matches any of these letters. So I would expect the first letter to be wrong because A is not equal to B. The second one, I would expect it to print right. And for the rest of the letters, I would expect it to print wrong. So if you remember, we can use a for loop to loop through things which are in a sequence. And we can do that with lists, but we can also do that with strings. So we can basically use the same for in loop that we learnt about previously, where we say for a letter, so this is a variable name that we give each of the letters in the chosen word that we're going to loop through. You can call it anything you want. And then we use in to define what are we looping through. So it's going to be the chosen word. And let's go ahead and just print letter just to make sure this is doing what we expect it to. So let's finish off with the input, and you can see what's happening here is it's looping through each of the letters in this chosen word, which in this case was aardvark, and it's printing it one by one. Now, instead of printing the letter, we want to check to see if the letter is the same as the guess. So if the letter that we're currently looking at in the chosen word, A, is it the same as the guess that the user inputted? Well, if it is, in that case, we're going to print right. And if it's not, so in the case of else, making sure you've got it at the right indentation level, notice how if and else are at the same starting line, then in this case, we're going to print wrong. So now let's rerun our code. In this case, the word that was chosen was camel, and I'm still guessing the letter A. Then it goes through this word camel. The first letter is C. C is not A, so that's wrong. Second letter is A, so it's right. And none of the other letters are A, so it prints out wrong. So this was what we wanted to achieve by the end of step 1. Did you manage to get it to work? If not, don't worry, go back to your code, fix it, and as long as you understand what's going on and how the code works in your version, then that is a success in my book. Now, once you're ready, then head over to step 2, and in the next video, I'll describe the steps in that section.